Good evening, everyone. You're very welcome to this evening's webinar, Club Performance webinar series on match preparation and recovery. My name's Gareth Thornton and I'll be delivering the webinar this evening. I suppose this evening we're going to look at match preparation and recovery from both a player's perspective and a coach's perspective. We'll explore match preparation and what it is and how it impacts on performance, and then different things that make up match preparation, and then we'll move on to recovery, and we look at different recovery strategies and potential ways of what the best way is to recover to optimize performance for the following week's game. So match preparation, it's how you prepare for a match, can have a considerable impact on your performance. When the ball is thrown in, all players desire to feel full of energy, confident and focused, and in other words, fully charged. So if you take a battery analogy, as a player, you want your battery to be as full as possible for as long as possible during a game. And by the end of that game, you want your battery to be empty. If your battery's empty after every game, well, then I suppose you've done all you can do in terms of trying your best. From a coach's perspective, we want to try and endeavour to have our players' batteries as full as possible. And we want them full of energy. We want them confident. We want them focused. To enhance performance. So in terms of how we do that, so different things that make up match preparation, and some of these probably sound really simple and are maybe overlooked by both players and coaches. So we'll go through each of them separately. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can get you in. We can chat through them. So we've got physical preparation. So from a player's perspective, what is your physical preparation like? So in the modern game, when preparation is such a buzzword, and at elite inter-county level, we're hearing all the stories about players maybe meeting 5-6 hours before games, going through the tactical side of things, going through specific mental preparation, making sure the food's right and all them types of things, and then heading in and so getting in the zone and getting game ready. So physical preparation at the level that maybe we're all involved with at youth level or adult level in clubs, it's that prehab and mobility side of things. So as a player, do you know the correct prehab exercises to do? Do you know the correct mobility exercise to do for potential body parts or potential muscles in the body that need that extra work? How long before game do you do it? How many reps do you do? How many sets do you do? You don't want to overdo it and tire out the muscle before you even start. From a coach's perspective, then, do as coaches, do we know the correct stuff to do? Are we prescribing it? Do we have an S&C coach within our management teams or within our club that can prescribe this sort of stuff and then give those answers when to do it and how to do it? Tactical preparation then. So from a player's perspective, tactically, as a player, are you familiar with your game plan? Are you familiar with set plays that potentially you're going to try and utilize throughout that game? Do you know your role? Has your manager or coach told you the day before the game or the day after the game that you're playing, what position you're playing in, what's expected of you? When you do know that stuff, are you writing things down in a diary, or do you have a jotter for game day where you're writing down a couple of points where your goal setting, or linking back to the couple of previous workshops we have around the profiling side of things and the goal setting side of things? Are you jotting them types of things down that you can be able to go and quickly revise them in the changing room before you go out to the game? As a manager, then, what's your preparation like in terms of, have you thought about your plan A, your plan B, what you're going to do if you're winning by 7-8 points with 6-7 minutes to go? Have you got a plan B? Do you try and protect the lead, or do you keep playing the way you are? Alternatively, if you have to chase a game, what do you do? What are you doing for opposition kickouts? What are you doing for your own kickouts? So have you that sort of stuff prepared with your other management team? Are you all totally familiar with what you want to do around those types of things, your game plans, your set plays? knowing your role in a match day for coaches and management team, so who's taking the warm up, who's delivering the team talk, who's speaking before the game, maybe, so there's no crossover of points, or there's no repetitiveness of what each coach is saying. So it's very, very important for a management team that we know our role. Mental preparation for a player, so again, this can happen from youth level onwards, and particularly more into adult level in the mental side of things. How are you mentally preparing for the game? Are you just turning up to the game at 6:45 for a 7:30 throw in and getting the change room, getting togged out and head out? Have you thought about the game that day? Are you starting to focus on what you're going to have to do that night, potentially who you're marking and all them types of things? What's your level of concentration like coming into the game? And again, probably thinking about what you have to do. Are you motivated? As a player, then how can you self-motivate yourself to put in a performance? And then the really, really simple thing for anyone of any age to be able to do is have no distractions. So in the lead up to the game, whatever it is, the 90 minutes or the 2 hours before a game, that you're avoiding all distractions. In terms of there's nothing that's getting your road that's going to affect your performance. Probably something that could be in there, and we'll touch on in a later slide, is the use of music. You hear a lot of teams now with the boombox on in the changing room, with all different types of songs coming out. Some guys are it'll get them going, listen to the dance music or the rave music. I listened to a podcast, and Wayne Rooney was on it there a couple of weeks ago, and he actually referenced that he would listen to Susan Boyle, one of her songs, when he was getting maybe getting a light rub from the masseur before going out to play a game. I went on and listened to the song, and it's far from a song to motivate you. It's very soothing and calming, and probably a touch of classical music to it. So that's something totally different to the heavy dance stuff or the rave stuff. And what certain players would like. You see a lot of the stuff now. You watch any of the inter-county stuff, and players getting off the buses, they all have their headphones in, and and I'm sure each player has their own type of playlist that they want to listen to that will help them get ready for a game. From a coaches and managers perspective, then, so what's your focus for the game? Have you communicated that with each other? Have you thought about what you're going to say? Do you think the players need to be motivated tonight? What's your motivation like that day? And how can you also avoid distractions? You need to be focused, and I suppose mentally you need to be on it in the lead up to that game, and especially when the preparation starts. Nutritional preparation. So for players, what's your pre-match nutrition like? What's your match day nutrition like? Anyone who was on our first webinar on nutrition would have heard me talk about match day -1. So the day before the match is probably the most important in terms of your nutrition, and looking at how many carbs you can get on board and that sort of stuff. So from a player's perspective, how can you I suppose, nail your nutrition and hydration, that it's on point, and that's going to give you the best possible way of optimizing performance. From a coach's perspective, again, we ourselves have to be fed and watered before games and stuff. It does affect concentration. If we're not having enough food and we're hungry, it might turn into a distraction for us as well. But more importantly, how are we getting the message across to our players that it's very, very important to have that nutrition, hydration sorted for games, and for getting them sort of even pre-match and stuff. I know, in terms of taking maybe a couple extra bars of chocolate or jelly sweets or something, having them in kit bags and stuff, just in case somebody has ran late and they haven't been able to get something that day. It's always good to have, just to give them that wee boost. Then logistical preparation, again, so something that is probably overlooked at underage, potentially, from players. They're probably, oh, I'll just get left there whenever mommy or daddy comes home, or whatever it is. So I'll be taking into consideration, the travel time to the game, what time we're meeting at, how long that's going to take, the potentially wee bit extra time, that there's not traffic and that sort of stuff. So things that are probably really simple and sound straightforward can have a negative effect on performance if if it's not right. You know, if you're running 10 minutes late, you're supposed to meet at 7 o'clock and you're landing in at 10 past 7, that heightens anxiety, you know, and the anxiety's heightened, you become nervous. You know, that first 10 or 15 minutes of the game, you're maybe not focused, which then will in turn have an effect on your performance. Kit bag's a big one in terms of, have you got everything in the kit bag you need? You know, I'm sure you've all heard the story. Michael Dara-McCauley in one of the All-Ireland finals for Dublin, Pat Gilroy was the manager, and he noticed before they went out for the game that Michael Dara had no boots, and Gilroy called him into the toilet and asked him. He says, "No, I forgot my boots." And Gilroy said, "Take mine," and they were size too big. I think it was the year McCauley got Player of the Year, and in the All-Ireland final, Michael Dara-McCauley wore Gilroy's boots a size too big, and Gilroy was standing on the line and Michael Dara's trainers, you know, so he's always a different character. It didn't affect him, but for some players, they couldn't deal with that whatsoever, you know. So it's having those things tied down that players are able to be organised, which it's limiting things that are going to distract them to optimise performance. From a coach's perspective, then it's the exact same thing. You know, if we're harping on to our players about being prepared, being on time, having everything organised, as a coach, do you have a I suppose a tick box to ensure that you're ready for the game? You know, in terms of, do you have your team sheets, do you have the jerseys, do you have all the equipment, and all them types of things that we know that goes with preparing for games. So as coaches, if we're putting a wee bit of pressure on players to prepare properly and have all the logistics sorted, as coaches and managers, it's probably key that we have them sorts of things sorted as well. So pre-match routine, and again, you know, you'll hear all the different stories about at elite level what players do. Some players like to, you know, get a couple hours sleep that morning, get up, bite to eat, and then go for a walk. Some players like to stay active and stay busy the whole day. They're not really thinking about it. You know, everyone does have their own individual routine, and it's probably a case of, as a player, finding out what works for you. So you maybe after a really good performance someday, is it a case of you're thinking back, well, what did I do today? What did I do last night? You know, yes, I got my 8 or 9 hours sleep. Breakfast was good this morning. Had a good lunch. I relaxed. You know, or whatever it was. You know, and then how can you work back to try and replicate that routine? That maybe is the one that works for you. You know, there's a story that goes about the Gooch. He was rooming with Paul Galvin before one of the All-Ireland finals, and Galvin went up into the room and Gooch was lying sleeping maybe at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and he had to wake him out of the bed and roll him out and get him down onto the bus. And I think Gooch went out and scored a goal and a couple of points in an All-Ireland final. So again, it's back and reinforcing that point that a pre-match routine is totally individual to yourself. And as a player, regardless of what age, it's for you to try and figure out, well, this works for me, that and then go and stick with it, and then so add to it and take away from it as you see fit. As coaches and managers, then, you know, do we talk about pre-match routines? Do we highlight what good practice looks like to our players? You know, do we educate our players on what a good pre-match routine is? Is there somebody within your playing group that you feel does really good pre-match routine, and maybe somebody who's not so good? You know, can you maybe compare them and see, well, player A does this, player B does this. Excuse me. What do you think? What do you think is a better pre-match routine? And maybe some people that don't have as good a pre-match routine can learn from it. This picture there of Jack McCaffrey is for an All-Ireland final. He's the headphones on. You know, he looks relaxed. He's smiling. You know, that again, I could throw up loads of pictures there where you see all the guys coming in with the head down, and you can see they look anxious and nervous. They've got the earphones in. You know, so again, what works for one player isn't going to work for another player. So I suppose the takeaway message is here, as a player, find a pre-match routine that works for you, and as a coach, how can you best educate your players as to what an effective pre-match routine, or how can you give them different examples as to what best practice may look like to help them with their pre-match routine, which will in turn hopefully enhance their performance on the pitch. So back to the battery analogy that I talked about. So, you know, as a youth player, maybe around under 13, under 14, the battery's probably pretty small, but it still needs to be fully charged. And as you go through the pathway, as you start to go into into minor football and then into adult, your battery gets bigger because there's more things needed within that battery that will help with effective performance. So you'll see here you're stretching your foam roll, your music playlist, avoiding distractions, good nutrition, hydration, check your kit bag and check your equipment. Again, all really simple things and really effective things. But I think some players overlook this type of stuff in the fact that they take it for granted. Well, I'm doing that and I'm doing that. And when they really drill down into it, and if they sat down and they ticked off from the image you see on the screen here, well, they might only do 2 of those things. So can you maybe, it's against an image as a player to have we look at, is an image as a coach to show to your group and say, well, tick these out of 5, or get them to come up with their own 5 things that what type of things would they do to make their battery full, and then how can they work back to make sure that they're carrying all these things out on match day. So again, you'll find that battery image and a blank battery image on the Ulster.gaa website. If you go and search the PALS website, PALS, you'll find it under the section match preparation and recovery. So recovery strategies. So again, we'll talk about the battery. At the start of the game, we want our battery to be as full as possible. We want to be well rested, focused, ready for competition and motivated. By the end of that game, you want your battery to be empty. You're fatigued, you're sore, you're dehydrated, you're not motivated because you simply can't go any longer. You've totally went to the well and you've exhausted yourself within that game and your battery's empty. Now, from a recovery perspective, how as quickly and effectively as possible can we get that battery recharged again to get you ready for a game in 7 days time, or maybe a youth player who's playing under 14 and under 16, one on a Monday night, one on a Wednesday night, or under 16 or minor, whatever age grades it is, will be playing across 2 or 3 different codes. How can you get your battery topped up as best you can and as quickly as you can? That's going to allow you to optimize performance the next night you're out. So again, as players, it's something for you to think about, but as coaches, how do we educate our players, especially around youth level, where players maybe just go home and that's it, they do nothing till the next night they're out and kick a leg at it again and hopefully they'll be okay. So as coaches, then how do we educate our players to get that battery fully charged again? So this is a real, again, my opinion on these types of things is nail the basics. If you can hit your 80-90 percenters with what you see in front of the screen here, and then all of the other wee small bits then add into the 10%. So after the game, cool down. Now, I know coaches, and one of them myself, who don't do cool downs after a game. There is research out there to suggest that a cool down after a game is maybe just walking to a part of the pitch, having a wee bit of a debrief and walking off the pitch, just to try and lower the heart rate and get the body cooled down. Some of the research would show that standing doing stretching after a game, it doesn't have any benefit to you in terms of recovery. Other coaches, and you'll see teams at elite inter-county level, doing a quite comprehensive cool down and a lot of stretching after a game. So again, it's up to you as a coach as to what you think works, and then maybe what works for your player. So your cool down of some description, rehydrate. So be it in the form of a protein shake or some sort of electrolyte drink, a pint of milk, or even just water. So how quickly can you get rehydrated to help with the recovery process? Some sort of ice bath or whatever it is. If you want in the changing rooms, can players jump into them, or you go home and you stand under a cold shower, or you stand under you jump into the bath, whatever it is. Shower, put on your compression garments, which again will help to restrict the blood flow. Post-match meal. So again, probably one of the most important things to do is eat and drink. Keep it really simple. Get some fluids into you, get some food into you, and get that recovery process started. Rest, relax, and sleep. So the 3 big ones, and again, they're so simple and basic, they're probably overlooked, is eat, drink, and sleep. All of the other stuff in terms of ice baths, recovery suites, the compression boots, massage guns, all these types of things, in my opinion, they're the 10%, whilst the eat sleep drink is, that's the 90% that is going to give you most benefit. How then do you start getting prepared for your next training session or for your next game? So any team I involve with, I'd always encourage them the next morning, they've got a stretching session to do, 5 or 6 minutes, nothing major. We would do a wee video up and they have it on their phone and they follow the video. So it's literally just a 5 or 6 minute mobility flow session that they can get up in the morning. If they've time, go for a quick walk and then get that stretch done, and that will then start to get the blood flow around the body again and help with the recovery process. So that's us. Thanks very much for joining in and listening up around match preparation and recovery.